Home, the gold.
He could be too far. No, he's kicking. Oh, what a catch!
Puts a spicy forehand out in front of Naomi Morcilla.
Wu for the win. Team Canada. Garrett Wu!
Santos with the layout grab.
Oh, that fantastic grab. The claws of Chaffer.
Canada just became the world champions.
Canada and the rest of the world. You're listening to the Huckin podcast. I'm one of your hosts, Theo Wan from Toronto, Ontario, living in Kingston, Ontario.
And I'm Danie Proby. I'm from Vancouver, BC, living in New West, BC. And together we are your coast-to-coast guide to all things Canadian Ultimate. I had a big Canadian Ultimate weekend. Did you?
I will say that I had a chance to get out the old cleats and play some 4-on-4 on Friday. And it wasn't so hot. Let's just say that. I'm going to be honest with the Huckin audience. There was some rust on these old bones here. More so like the game sense, less the physical, because I've been doing a little game point performance. Shout out to Goose Helton and the crew over there. They run a great program. So if you need a strength training program, you should hit up. We're not even sponsored. This is just straight up, just check out GPP. But yeah, it was fun. This is my first Friday off where I can actually play Frisbee because we have Fours League here in Kingston at that time. I got to play with some Masters legends, people who played at Wamuck. Katie Fizell, I'll give you a shout out. I know you played Wamuck, and a couple of people who played Solstice, and so it was kind of cool. It was cool. So I did play some Frisbee on Friday. You, however, less playing, more observant.
It was so fun. I've been waiting for this tryout for so long. Like the Ottawa tryout was so long ago. Yeah. And I just am so excited to start building the team that there's just a lot of anticipation with this weekend. And it's also just a lot of athletes that I've known for a long time. A lot of athletes flying in from like Winnipeg, Alberta, coming in from Victoria. So it was really exciting to see everybody together. We had lots of people helping out. We had so many volunteers, like current, like top players, legends from the past. Like it was just a good vibe. The weather was pristine. It was like 9 degrees and sunny both days. It was amazing. A little bit of too much goose poop everywhere, but other than that, it was like perfect. So yeah, making the decisions really tough. We'll talk more about the 24 tryouts in the news section. But yeah, I'm feeling good. I've got Jeremy Hill staying with me because he was with me, coach for the weekend, observing all the players. And so he got to play volleyball with me last night. So shout out to him for being good at volleyball. Every time
Is he good at volleyball?
Yeah, I mean, he wasn't in the first game, which I told him to his face. And the second game, he was like the best person on the court. It was crazy. I think he's warming up.
What kind of level of volleyball is this, though?
It's
like are you getting big hits in this?
It's people are crushing the ball. It's competitive, ish. But people are good. These people all played and stuff. Like I'm an anomaly because I didn't really play after high school, so I am just trying to remember my skills. But they've all been playing since forever. So yeah, he did really well. So it was really funny. But it's a little bit of foreshadowing because after the news section, we got 2 main events. Jeremy Hill staying with me. He was at the All-Star game for the AUDL. So we're going to chat with him. But first, we're going to chat with Anja Haman, one of the most incredible athletes that Ultimate Canada has ever produced, claimed, whatever. She's so decorated on the field, and she's also just an amazing human off the field. So we're very privileged to be able to have her on the podcast. So that's going to be our main event. We're going to head to the news real quick, get that over with so we can get chatting with Anja Haman. So let's head to the news.
We now have breaking news.
Welcome to your news section. So as I said, U24 happened this weekend. It's tough because I think when you look across the tryout, you're like, okay, well, maybe I'm in the top 20 of this tryout, but I think you even need to be better than that. Like with the amount of people that are coming from the East and West tryouts, and there's about 36 spots per gender match across the teams, it's hard to make one of these teams. And not only that, like I don't think the athletes really fully understand how specific coaches have to get about the types of roles. Like, okay, maybe you're a smaller, feisty cutter on a D-line. You can only have so many of those types of players on a team. And so even though you might be in the top whatever at a tryout, you're being compared against someone that's your similar type of skill set in the East and stuff. So a lot of stuff kind of has to happen over the next couple weeks for us to be able to make our teams. We also take into account people's preferences, all of that stuff. So we did tell the athletes at the West tryout that people will start hearing by December 1st or on December 1st. And then a couple weeks after that, December 14, 15, I think was what the date, everyone should have heard an answer. Yes, no, by that point. So we have 2 weeks basically until offers start coming out. The 3 coaches have to kind of keep deciding where players are best suited, etc. And then a couple weeks after that, everyone will be confirmed. So basically you get your offer. If you get an offer, you have 20 or 48 hours usually to pay and accept your spot. So that's kind of where we're at. I'm excited. Trials were dope.
First of all, thank you for those who were able to help out, both in the West and East. If it was just the coaches, it'd be hard. So the fact that you're out here, I mean, it was nice weather in the West. I know the East was not. So especially for those in the East that were holding the clipboards out and evaluating while it was crappy weather, kudos to you. You mentioned something interesting, which was the first sort of like December 1st. Is that people that will get the offers kind of first, and then the 2 weeks after is like the people who didn't get it? Is that a weird question?
It's kind of a range because like there's first offers and people can either decline for various reasons, family stuff, money stuff, whatever. And so the first offers go out, and so you need time to have potential multiple rounds of offers. So you have like your first list that goes out, and then you kind of chip away after that. It's the December 15th or whatever, the 2 week later date is everyone should have heard by this date. And if you didn't, so we missed you somehow. So all the no's will get an email at the end once it's kind of all decided. Does that make more sense?
It does. When you're saying that, like the chipping away the list, it just makes me think of weddings. I've been B-listed before, so I get it. Have you been B-listed before? I know this has nothing to do with the news, but have you ever been B-listed at a wedding before where the first offers for a wedding invite were given out and you're just filling a spot at the table? Has that ever happened to you?
I've not really been to any weddings. So Ari and I are kind of trailblazing with our kind of groups of people, but we definitely accidentally B and C and D listed people for our wedding because we were so casual about our invites. I completely forgot one of my traffic captains, and she's a friend of mine. And I was like, I don't see your name on this RSVP list. She's like, you didn't invite me. I was like, that's my bad.
She got B-listed though. You got B-listed.
Like G-listed. But she's coming to the wedding. She was on my list. So I think the whole thing has been very casual. So I think that even if people are like quote unquote B-listed, no one cares. Like they all understand that it's a very casual situation. So not really. But anyway.
This is actually the second part of our news is that a certain someone's getting married. So that is
this weekend.
That's part of our news segment here. So the fact that Danie taking time out to record the podcast, we appreciate that. The wedding's taking place, honeymoon going all the way to Hawaii, correct?
Yeah, in a camper van, just going to drive right to Hawaii. Yeah, San Diego or something. But we're mostly keen on doing like national park hikes with our puppy and playing some disc golf and just hanging out in a camper van. So should be a good time. The next episode we're going to be recording. So this is kind of the news adjacent. All the votes are in now for the Huckin Awards, the college awards. We're stoked. So the next episode is going to be our kind of like discussion about the winners of the awards, the runners up and the second runners up. And then we're also going to be having 2 guests on to represent the winners of the Huckin Heart Award. So next episode, check it out. It's going to be thebomb.com. I don't know when it'll be because
we don't know when it will come out. It'll depend on scheduling.
I mean, I've got Monday, that's it, of next week to record, Theo. So that you got to kind of work within that schedule.
The guests have to work within the schedule. We got to get them on.
I know. They have to understand that I've got life stuff, but hopefully they're available and then we can hear from them why they're voted in by their peers for the Huckin Heart Award. Like, what
Best
an honor
award there
to
is.
be
Come on.
acknowledged that you're like the heart, the passion, the soul of your team. That's so cool. It's so cool.
Yeah, kudos to all the award winners. You'll be finding out eventually. And yeah, thanks for all the teams that voted out there in the D1. We appreciate that. And your cooperation with making sure people are getting recognized. That's something you'll notice that we're trying to continue to do on the podcast is give some shine to people for all their effort in the sport. So
speaking of people that shine in our sport, it is time to head to the main event. Anja Haman, delightful interviewee. So many stories. I think I could have stayed on air with her for maybe an hour and a half. We got to have her back, but you'll love this interview. She's just, I don't know, she's great. I know, Theo, you've never met her before. What was your first impression?
Well, it looks like I have a new ultimate mentor in my life, hopefully.
Yeah.
I know she's a busy person, but if I can take any of the little strats and like nuggets of info, I'll be a better player for it. So hopefully you stick around. We want you to stick around after this break for the double main event. Come on. So we'll see you there. This episode is brought to you by Be Ultimate Apparel. Based out of Vancouver, BC, Be Ultimate is climate neutral certified and designs products that are built to perform. I personally love my 2 Be Ultimate Sun hoodies, and I rock them wherever I go. If you want to learn more about Be Ultimate, start your custom team order, or check out any of their ready for purchase collection, you can head over to beultimate.ca.
This is Mike Haddock, founder of Haddock Sport Performance and strength and conditioning coach for Ultimate Canada, and you're listening to the Huckin podcast, your coast-to-coast guide for all things Canadian Ultimate.
Welcome to main event number 1. We get a lot of legends on the podcast, but today we got a real legend in the house, Anja Haman. How you doing all the way from Danie's neck of the woods there in BC? But first, I'll let you introduce yourself, and then we're going to get right to the questions because you are a living legend in our presence. Come on.
Well, that's very kind of you. Doing very well here in Vancouver, sunny Vancouver, which we're enjoying for November. Yeah, I've been playing since 1990, actually even earlier than that. Competitively, I've played grass, I've played beach, women's, mixed, masters, and have loved the game and the community. And it's a pleasure to be here. Thanks for asking.
I'm personally very excited to have you. I mean, Theo's stoked as well, but I feel like the whole time I've been playing, I've actually played with you. I don't even know if you remember. I think it was like my second year ever. I was playing maybe at Flower Bowl, and we had like a random team mashed together.
Oh, yes.
I had just started playing, so I was nobody. So you probably didn't remember me, but I was probably really annoying. So I've actually known about you and been kind of like in similar circles to you. You've been presenting at coaching conferences that I've been running. You've been coaching teams in BC, but I didn't really get to know you too much at the peak of your career. But we're going to stay on the coaching side of it right now. So I was just doing U24 tryouts this weekend, and you were on the field helping us out. So we actually had you be a group lead. And I'm just kind of curious, before we kind of dive into about you, how your weekend was, and if there's anything that kind of stood out to you as being different or the same about the types of athletes in that division.
So it was an amazing weekend. I mean, first of all, it was sunny and lovely, gorgeous
beautiful
weather. It was great. But what stood out is just the sheer volume of talented people who had come to the trial. Tons of male and female matching players, and with incredible skills at such a young age. Not only did they love the game and work hard, but they had really strong break force, throws, hucks, understanding of strategy, playmaking. It was humbling and exciting to see.
Giving back, we always appreciate people giving back to the community, legends helping out. So we're gonna start all the way back though. You talked about people starting young, so this is maybe a story that a lot of people don't know of how you started in the sport. So tell us how you got into it. Was it in a phys ed class? Was it you saw it across the street at a park? How did you get into the sport of Ultimate?
Well, I do have to say that right around when Ultimate started in 1968, I have a video of myself at age 4 throwing with my mom in Calgary in rural Alberta with a massive snowsuit on.
Really?
And so I like to think I was destined to play ultimate.
Do you still have this picture?
Yeah, it's a video. I have it on YouTube.
Oh, a video. Can you send it to me?
Yeah.
Thanks.
Yes. Yes,
Okay.
will do. Anyway, so, that was the beginning. Then in 1986, 87, I lived in Edinburgh. And a few of us had heard of Ultimate. And of course, the internet didn't exist yet. That's how long ago it was. So we played on the meadows of Marchmont and played some form of Ultimate. It was maybe not Ultimate as we think of it today, but it was definitely a team sport with a disc. And then I moved back to Canada, and really where I started was in 1990 in Calgary, where I had seen some people play and I stopped and watched them. They just seemed too cool to me. I just thought, I'm not that cool. And so I biked away. And then they saw me throwing in a field. And though Cheryl Claiborne, who is a dear friend and got me into the sport, just very kindly convinced me to come out to the women's clinic she was running. And I didn't want to wear cleats. I'd never played team sports before. Didn't really feel like it was my destiny. But I loved the disc and I loved running. So I went out and played. And at my first tournament was Canadian Nationals in Calgary. And Steve Lyman, who is just a phenomenal thrower, runner, player, human, grabbed me at the party and just took me aside and said, Anja, you can be a phenomenal ultimate player. You should keep playing this game. And so I really say to Cheryl and to Steve, thank you, because they took me under their wing. They taught me about sports and ultimate, and they believed in me, which I think was critical.
Thank you so much for sharing that. I couldn't agree more, especially we kind of talked about this off air, but being like a woman in a sports space, I think having external belief is, as much as I wish I could just have full unbridled belief in myself from the beginning, that external belief or in you is so pivotal from coaches, from teammates, from friends. So I really appreciate that, because I think that is still true. I know, Theo, you were kind of listing off some of Anja's achievements off air. Can you rattle off a couple before I even ask this question? Because I know you had it just pulled up and we were trying to count some of the accolades, and we're probably going to miss some.
Well, I just see a lot of WUGC Canada is what I'm seeing. So multiple gold medals with Canada, playing with Iceni out there as well. In the mid 2000s, and then of course winning some Canadian Nationals with Vancouver Prime and Vancouver Goo. Can't forget about them. So there's a lot more. There's a lot more, Danie, than what I just listed. You could go to the USA Ultimate Hall of Fame 2022 website to find out more if you want all the deets there on Anja's accomplishments.
But the ones on the USA Ultimate's website were just particularly pertaining to USA Ultimate events, right? I think that if you go on the Ultimate Canada website, it's different. It's a different list. Anja, you can answer this now.
There's more is what it sounds like.
Yeah.
Both sites are going to give you a bunch of facts really at the end of the day. And I'm not easy to summarize, because it is true that I played for Canada and then moved to Britain, played for Britain. I coached and played on the British national team here in Vancouver in 2008. And of course, really tried to win the USAU champs and only managed to get second place there, which was always a bit heartbreaking. But I think both sites try to give you a feeling for what my strange career.
They just ran out of room on the page. So you've clearly had a long and illustrious career, and trying to summarize it obviously is difficult, because you've played ultimate at such a high level in so many different ways in different places. So we are curious if you could talk about some of your favorite achievements or key moments that happened in your career.
Yeah, I'd love to. The honest truth is I have always loved the game. I've just loved the game. So from pumpkin pull, paganello, potlatch, fun tournaments, like I loved some of those moments as much as some of the bigger moments because it's just the playing the game in the community that is so amazing and has kept me playing for decades. But if I were to say, okay, what really, like if you narrowed it down, the main, really the big moment was winning the WUG women's division in 2000. And the reason for that is that when I moved to Vancouver with Jen Catalano and Cheryl Claiborne in 1993, 1992, we said, there's no reason why we can't take the people here in Vancouver, and it has all the ingredients to become good enough to beat the Americans who beat us 19-1 at that time when we went to play them. And we had this just belief that we should be able to play internationally and become good enough to win. And then 7 years of slogging it out to develop that. Winning in 2000 was the culmination of that vision that seemed outlandish in 1993. So I think that was really the most memorable moment.
I know Deep Look just had Khalif El Salam on their podcast, and they were asking him like which medal that he won this year, club championships, World Club Championships, World Games, or Club Nationals was more important to him. And he was saying Club Nationals because he was grinding with that team. They had a vision. They all bought into this vision over a long period of time. And it kind of sounds like it's similar for you, where you have this vision, you have this core group of people that buy in. So finally getting that achievement is just like so sweet. So it's very cool to hear about it. One thing that I thought was interesting on the weekend, because I said, congrats on Hall of Fame, blah, blah, blah. And you casually mentioned that it's your 4th Hall of Fame. So like, first of all, what? Second of all, what Hall of Fames? I can guess, but I'd rather you talk about it.
It's just I always want to make sure that I give recognition to all of the groups, really. So the Canadian Ultimate Hall of Fame, the Vancouver Ultimate League Hall of Fame, the VUL Hall of Fame, and the Iceni Club Hall of Fame, because they have this massive London club team, and they created a Hall of Fame, and I was inducted into their Hall of Fame, which, I'm just honored and very appreciative of all the groups.
I mean, I think that the USA Ultimate one is harder to land on. So I was actually surprised that you weren't inducted earlier. Are you surprised?
I'm just grateful to be inducted.
Okay.
I mean, it is true that the inductees for me this year are what I would consider like a new generation from when I was playing. I played through many generations, and they were one of the newer generations in my span of years. But I'm just also very grateful to be inducted as a Canadian, and in a very large number of competitive women. I honestly believe, the U.S. just has so many players, so many talented players, that for every inductee, there's 10 others that could be inducted. So I don't care when. I'm very appreciative that they voted me in, and I'm honored.
Yeah, we love seeing Canadians on there. So huge congratulations. Unsurprising to me, but I understand you're humble and you're grateful, and I'm grateful as well to see more Canadians on there.
And before we get to the next question, how did you find out? Like, this is something I always want to know. Because when we talk about, finding out you make national teams, sometimes it's an email, sometimes it's a phone call. So did you get a phone call, or was it just a casual email there?
No, I got a phone call that I hung up on multiple times during Halloween because I was giving out candy, and I just thought it was a spam call. It was coming from Texas. I just kept hanging up.
I don't want it. No,
why
thank
am I
you.
So many spam calls. And then she reached out on text and said, "Hey, can you give me a call?"
This is not spam.
Yeah. So
God.
then I realized, like, oh, this isn't just some spam call. And we called each other the next day.
And then you found out the great news. So Yeah, always appreciate you sharing your achievements there. And we didn't list this as an achievement per se, but you were part of a group that helped found a team here in Vancouver, or there in Vancouver, I should say, a women's team out there. So can you talk us through that process and maybe give some advice? Because we've seen, teams form up in different major cities in Canada, people trying to start up new programs. So maybe someone listening out there in the audience can learn from your experience there starting a program.
Sure. So first of all, like when I moved to Vancouver, there was the Jade Gates, and they were an elite competitive team. So that team existed that I played with. But a few of us, in particular, Cheryl Claiborne, Jen Catalano, and I talked about it and said, we want to play internationally and we want to beat the US. They're the best in the world. We want to play the best in the world. And that meant a lot of travel, a lot of funding, and quite frankly, a lot more dedication than we were used to, because they were, on average had 12 years of experience as players, and we had 2 or 3. So we knew if we wanted to beat them, we needed to practice more. And Vancouver had, warm weather and year-round practice. So we kind of said, hey, there's this potential here with really active people, warm weather, close to the Pacific Northwest, where some of the top teams in the world played. And we want to go play them. So that was the vision of the 3. And then we took a team to the Wisconsin WUC in 1993, and that's GOO. We needed a name, so we called it Guests of Oprah, because Oprah is in the vicinity. We thought it would just be a temporary name for that one team, and it stuck. We stayed with GOO until in 1999. So I'll give you the kind of the phases. I think club teams, when you go through phases, and they're the same phases that companies go through. So if you're an entrepreneur or somebody in business, this pattern is exactly the same. So, I was in the early years of GOO where we had this vision, and we were about building infrastructure, getting athletes to be attracted to the sport, building practices and flying, learning how to fly. Nobody flew back then. So figuring out how to fly to California and what tournaments to go to before the internet really could help you with that. So there was this years of GOO where we developed into national winners and started playing the Americans. And then came another phase where I actually retired out for work, at the same time started a B team, where I met Jill Culkin, who I won a gold medal with in the World Games. Very grateful for that. And I knew at that time that my leadership was kind of stalled. I had given years and everything I knew about leadership and the game, and I could tell I didn't know what else to give to get us to the next level. Passed off the leadership to Leslie Calder and a bunch of others who did take the team to the next level. They introduced more structure to use everybody on the field. Had a smaller, more focused season. Gave up some of the tournaments that we thought were important for infrastructure so that we could go play Americans. They made harder choices and created structure to use the whole team and took them to the next level up. So that was kind of the next phase. And then I came back in 98, the fall of 98, and then talked about 99. We said, we are now, our tactics and our skills, our breadth, our strategy is actually getting us into semis. We're pretty good, sometimes finals, but we're not winning. We're not winning. And what is the problem with that? And we really said, it's our mindset. It's our mental game that is holding us back. So that's when we changed the name to Prime. Because you said GOO is kind of this goofy name. Prime says we're number 1. So as with all, growth, we needed to do multiple things to get us through. And there, Leslie Calder introduced mental toughness. And we did 2 years of mental toughness training as individuals, completely changed my game and my awareness. I think I was mentally tough, but it took me to the next level. And then we went to the World Games in 2000 and had Ashley end up captaining us. And Ashley was this amazing decision maker. And she could take my kind of creative side and Leslie's structured side, and she would just make decisions. And that's when we won. So I think we won, and we've given talks on this. We won because the first phase was this innovative, driven, hard, instinctive phase. Then there was this structured, use everybody, become more sophisticated phase. And then there was the balancing both and using the mental game to actually believe we were number one. So
What?
yeah, that was kind of a long answer.
No, we loved it. I have so many follow-up questions, and maybe Theo does too, but my first one is, what were you doing for mental toughness training? Was it just like discussions? Was it visualizations? Was it a mixture?
So Leslie led this, and we talked about how the five senses really impact what you do on the field. So visualization, we introduced visualization so we understand what it was and how to use it in the many forms, to redo and replay. What you talk to yourself. I learned that when people were starting to take me deep, because I was a short handler, and I thought, oh no, I'm going to get cut and be taken deep. And Leslie asked me, well, what do you think of as you're running down the field? And I said, well, really just curse words. Because I'm thinking, no. She said, well, why don't you just change it to, I got this. Instantly, my stats changed. Instantly, without any training. And that's when I really realized, what you think, what you visualize, what you hear, having support buddy system. We introduced buddy systems and what you hear and what you tell yourself. Small goals, about goal setting, having the big vision, but breaking it down so that you're always getting positive, small feedback to keep you going through the tough times. Distractions, learning how to manage distractions and negative thinking. And these are life skills that have improved me as a human being, but also as a player. So it was this package over 2 years. Every season we went through discussions and exercises.
Okay. First of all, that's what I think when somebody takes me deep. I'm like, oh shit, oh shit. I didn't say the T, so it's not actually swearing. Oh shit, like the whole time. And so I'm going to try to think about like, I got this. And I'm actually a tall human, so I have even less of an excuse to be saying that to myself. So that's really good advice. If you are listening to this, you probably have negative self-talk, and that is one of the most impactful things that if you can make a switch there, it's easy and it will show up in your game and how you are even present for other people as well. So another follow-up question for me, just because if people haven't really seen you play, seen any of the footage or anything like that, can you describe your playing style? Like, what is like your vibe when you're on the field? What do you bring to the table?
I'm a quick, I've always been, I feel like at 59, maybe I shouldn't say I am quick.
You are quick.
I was quick.
Yeah.
But no, I was a quick, dynamic, creative handler. So I have a really wide variety of throws and risk-takey throws because I played with people like Leslie and Valdion and Soothing Struby and people who are willing to catch my weird throws. So I have this backhand upside down, which I lovingly call the Haman, which I developed and built and used even at World Championships to break through zones. So wide variety. And then I'm really quick. I could strike and get the disc because I had speed. But also I could just break the force to set the play up.
I seem to remember seeing lots of videos and photos, and even in person back in the day, you just like flying through the air too. You like to lay out, right?
Layouts. I did like to lay out. And I love playing D and O. I always loved playing D and O. And I did lay out a lot. And I taught people how to lay out, which I know now people are saying, like, you don't need to teach people, but
you do.
If they don't know, like, why would you not teach that when to safely and in a controlled way learn how to dive to keep your body whole? Mm-hmm. I think So I taught, and especially in those days where people really didn't lay out, especially women didn't lay out a lot. I thought it was really important. So I did a lot of laying out.
I think that's why it stood out to me, because I think it's a lot more common even the last couple of years, where it's kind of an expectation that people will hit the deck to get the disc. But I think even like 10 years ago when I started playing, it was like if somebody had a layout catch or something, or even a layout block, even more rare. Like it was, everyone took notice. They're like, whoa. And it's always like the one person on your team would do it. And now it's an expectation. But going even back to your eras, I'm going to say eras because you played in many different eras. You must have been like one of the very few that were doing it consistently, because I feel like, or maybe that was just like the vibe of the Ultimate back then and we became soft for a little bit.
I don't want to do disjustice to my teammates. There were a lot of women like Jen Nichols and obviously Leslie and Sunding and Jill and all those ladies. I mean, all those women. They
fly.
They flew. But it is true. There was also a percentage of the population that just said, that's not for me. And honestly, I said the same thing when I started. That's dangerous. You could hurt yourself. But if you want the disc enough, suddenly you're flying through the air.
So you mentioned a lot of names in this podcast. I can't even name them all. A lot of shout outs you were giving out. So originally this question had coaches, but we've learned off air, folks, that back in those days there were no coaches. So you were a player captain, you're kind of doing your own thing, So mentors or teammates, you probably can list a whole scroll and we could be here all day, but a couple that you want to give shout outs to that really made you into the player that you were or that you are.
Yeah. I have mentioned a few of them, like Cheryl Claiborne and Steve Lyman, who were phenomenal athletes and taught me the game. And Leslie Calder, who's just a beast of a player and, was there digging through the years to try to get us to those gold medal years, and with whom I have the 3 gold medals. Ashley Howard, who I learned so much from her about leadership decision-making. She was just a machine of decision-making, and really appreciated the years of watching her lead. Also, I have to give a call out to the Maniacs, who in 1993, we had this theory that we should be able to drive to Seattle and fly to these American tournaments because flight prices had just come down. And so 3 of us tested the idea by going to Davis, the Davis Cup. And we went to pick up, 3 of us. And there are these women who are looking to pick up too, and we're making sure they were good enough for us. Turned out they were the Maniacs, who were like the elite California team. And there were only 6 or 7 of them, and they needed more players, and they picked us up. So it was like Molly Goodwin and Lester and Annie Kreml and others. Amazing athletes. And what I learned from them that weekend was the winning mindset. In our mind, they'd picked up a bunch of jumps from Vancouver, and we were very short staffed. There were not a lot of people on our team. And never once did I feel that they questioned our ability to win that tournament. And I went back from that tournament thinking, I now understand what it means to be a winner, to feel like you're a winner, to know that you're a winner, and it changes how you play. And I'm ever so grateful for that April tournament.
I'm taking notes for my U24 squad. I'm going to be saying this to them. I'm going to be preaching them. You got to know that you're a winner. You can beat the States. They're not that scary. Yeah. Anja did it. Okay. Advice you could give to players. We have a lot of young players that listen to our podcast. Anything that you did that kind of took your game to the next level? Theo, I appreciate in the question you didn't say elevate your game to the next level. I'm actually a little offended. But
I didn't give a little Elevate Ultimate shout out. You're right. I did not put that in there. I could have. A little brand placement.
Yeah. Yeah, because you're a squirrely handler. What are some things that you did to make it so that your throwing arsenal was as wide as it was, as dynamic as it was, creative, etc.? Like, what were you doing to be able to get to that level?
I would say I answered some of this weekend to some of the players who were asking me about their next steps. It is about just doggedly setting higher standards for yourself than you feel comfortable with. I think Terry Orlick wrote a book where he called it delicious uncertainty. You always have to set just a slightly higher standard for yourself than you're comfortable with. And then you need to do the things that will lead to you achieving those goals, And so there, like I said, there was a time when I thought, okay, I'm a great handler. I'm being taken deep. I'm worried. I want to keep playing this game at the elite level. So I just, after every practice, I did 500 ups. I did 500 ups with Al Nichols and Kirk Savage.
Oh my gosh.
I played games with Mike Grant where we just chucked the disc as a high blade as possible and then jumped and caught it one-handed. I did everything I possibly could to try to take my weaknesses and manage them and elevate my strengths.
Thank you.
So, yeah, you just got to. And another thing, Jeff Cruikshank and I, every single year, introduced a new throw to our arsenal. And people said, aren't you bored of Ultimate after this many years? We both said, well, I've just got so many more throws to learn.
You just dropped so many crazy names in the most casual way. All of these people
more legends, yeah.
So many. And just at the park with these folks. I think that I really appreciate that because I think when I'm coaching kids when they're in high school, for example, I can always see which kids are going to be great by who sticks around after practice and chucks bombs and is trying to catch it at its peak. They're trying to learn how to read the disc. They're working on things after practice. And it kind of sounds like that's some of the stuff that you were doing in order to kind of change your game and change a weakness into a strength. I think those types of things are so important. And I hope that people who are listening to this are really taking that advice super seriously because I think it's easy to try to specialize today's day because there's so many players that are you have the thrower that is maybe a liability on defense, or you have this person who's short, but they're a liability XYZ, and becoming a little bit more well-rounded and seeing those as opportunities rather than things to hide from is just such a great mindset. Theo, I have another follow-up question. Is that okay? Okay, great.
Take it away, Danie.
How has the game changed? Again, off air, we talked about the force thing. I would love for you to kind of talk about that. I've heard rumors about other rule changes as well, but I am curious, general strategy and any insights you have. I find it so fascinating.
Massive changes since I started. In 1990, when I played on Flow in Calgary, we forced middle, and that's how the game was played. Everybody forced to the middle of the field. And then around that time, somewhere in the early 90s, somebody had suggested a one-way force, like an all flick or an all backhand force. And it was widely debated, and it was really seen as something shocking at the time.
I love that.
So, that's where it started. And then, the vertical took over, then horizontal took over. I personally loved that defense became more varied, that there were lots of different looks on D. That's my style of game. I really believe that we had to beat the Americans, for example, not by playing their game because we'd never catch up. We had to change the rules and change the look of our D and our O so that we could compete. So the years of all vertical, and that's the only way to play. And then somebody introduced horizontal, and that was flashy and new, and some people doubted it. And it still has so many more. And the professional leagues came in. And that caused a lot of changes in terms of just how the game is played and perceived. And I just think it's all really good. I think it's all really good. The game still has decades of growth ahead of it with more exciting changes to come. So I would say to your listeners, I threw that upside down backhand and people didn't like it when I introduced it. So I just had to learn, it's okay, I'll slow them into this. They'll see the way eventually. And I think if people have innovations to the game now, learn how to introduce it so that you're not throwing people off, but don't stop innovating.
I love that. And the most important question, vertical or horizontal?
As a strategist, there is no correct structure. There is only what's appropriate in the context of the game.
Okay.
Yeah, I love strategy. And I think it's so critical to not get over enthused by a particular structure, because what you want to do is you want to watch what the other team is doing, know your strengths. And sometimes you need to play your weaknesses because it's also their weakness.
Mm-hmm.
So I just think use what's working.
So what you're saying is you want to get back into coaching. Someone from the audience, if you want a strategist to help you, you know who to call, because dropping some nuggets right here, got the mental toughness and the strategy. So I don't know if you'll travel out east, all the way to Toronto or even the East Coast here to do some coaching. But Anja, I'm sure someone would love to have you if you're still available. You got lots of ideas in the mind there.
Theo needs a coach, a personal coach.
I definitely need a personal coach. Danie,
I do business coaching too.
Well, there you go. I need a personal coach. Danie doesn't keep up with my stuff, so she'll just be like, Theo, you need to talk to someone else. So Anja, you might be that person for me, is what I'm saying.
She's pretty busy.
We can talk.
Any last things that you want to share with our audience? Anything that's kind of just like percolating in your mind?
Well, one thing I didn't talk about is the British team. I was retiring and I was going to go to Europe to sip coffees and go to galleries and enjoy my European lifestyle. I was going there for work. And these women reached out to have me do a layout clinic, and then they convinced me to come to their practices. And then before I knew it, I was playing in the European Championships and on the Iceni Club team, and then coaching the British team and playing with the British team. And I just want to call them out because they renewed my love of the game at a time. And I'm so appreciative of them. And that's something for yourself as well. If you feel like, you're becoming stale or whatever, I so appreciate what they did for me because they let me play this really dynamic, fun team. And they were such spirited, tight team. They took that tight team approach. And I'm grateful. I'm so grateful because they refreshed and renewed my ultimate game. And then I just kept going into masters and all that. And also, I would like to thank both of you because to have a Canadian broadcast and to have people highlighted and women highlighted, in my day, it was extremely hard to get any eyeballs or support on the women's game. And I just really appreciate and can say how important it is to showcase women, showcase the women's game, and to showcase Canadian Ultimate. So huge thank you, because I know it's a lot of work and I really appreciate it.
Thanks, Anja. I think I can speak for both Theo and I. We love Canadians and we love women. So it's an easy thing to do. And it's been a really fun journey. And I think being able to have people like you come on and just be able to pick your brains, it makes it all worth it. It's very cool. We had Miko on last week. We have you on this week. It's a privilege to be able to chat with you. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, so that is going to wrap up our interview with you, Anja, but we will welcome you back with open arms. If you ever have an itching, burning topic that you think needs to be covered, or a specific game, if there's footage of a game that you think is just like a Canadian classic, we love covering those. So please let us know. We will definitely welcome you back. You're now part of the Huckin A family.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Yeah, so
really do appreciate it.
Thank you so much. And we're going to take a quick break, and then we're going to head to another segment, our main event part 2 with Jeremy Hill, AUDL superstar. So many legends on the podcast today. Anja, you might be slightly more legendary than Jeremy, but don't tell him I said that.
I'm sure it's age alone.
All right, so we'll see you after the break.
Thanks.
Welcome to main event part 2. Honored to have Mr. Jeremy Hill. If you're watching this on YouTube, you can see that he's actually physically beside me. So this is an unusual interview because normally we interview people that aren't in the same room as us. So hello, Jeremy. Maybe you can introduce yourself, and maybe how you got into Ultimate and where you're playing now.
Sure. My name is Jeremy Hill, as Danie mentioned. I'm very fortunate to be in Vancouver right now as part of the Under 24 Team Canada tryout process. I got into Ultimate in my first year of university at Brock University. And since then, I've been fortunate to play a couple different teams in Ottawa, professionally and internationally. And yeah, it's kind of pretty much mostly about me.
Sweet. So yeah, as Jeremy mentioned, we had U24 tryouts this weekend. He actually missed the first day of tryouts. I gave him permission, folks. Don't worry about it. But he missed it. Why did you miss it, Jer? What was so important that you'd miss the Saturday of the U24 tryouts?
Yeah, very thankful that Danie gave me approval this Saturday. I was feeling a little guilty, but fortunately I had the opportunity to represent the Ottawa Outlaws in the AUDL All-Star game. I'm wearing my All-Star jersey here today, and
I'll move the mic so if you're watching on YouTube, you can see it.
There you go. So pretty awesome design that the league came up with. But yeah, got to be the Ottawa representative after an injury from one of my teammates. Awesome experience, and we'll get more onto that in a little bit.
Yeah, so I know your call up was a little bit last minute because it wasn't somebody else was originally going to be going in that place, and so I'm curious where you were, what you were doing, when you got the call, and then how did you feel when you got the call?
Sure. Yeah, I was just working a normal day in the life of Ultimate that I'm currently working in. Have some programs starting up in Ottawa, so just getting some kids registered, and got a message from one of the organizers of the league that there was an injury, and they're looking to see if I was able to move some flights around and make it happen. I kind of was frozen when I first heard about it. I didn't really know how to react. I was really excited, but didn't know if it was logistically going to work out, so didn't want to kind of get too excited. But glad everything worked out, and yeah, it was a great time.
So for those of you that don't know, or I mean, maybe you can explain to the people that don't really know, what makes it an all-star game?
Sure, yeah. So the AUDL All-Star game is made up of 25 athletes, 30 in total, but 25 with one representing each team. Portland got 2 representatives as they were the host team. And then there were 4 fan votes. So best defender, highlight maker, stuff like that. And that gave us 2 teams of 30. One team of 15, one team of 15 for 30 players. And yeah, just kind of a skills showcase of top players across the league all in one area. And great opportunity to meet players that you don't normally get to play against.
So they split it up east-west. How do they do that?
Yeah, so the previous All-Star game was a draft-based. This one they decided to go east and central. And then they put the other 2 divisions together. Just logistically, how it worked out. There was one player from Montreal who ended up playing with the West divisions just for numbers, but that was kind of a fun wrinkle to have Montreal boys on each team. So yeah, that's how they split it up this time.
Which do you think is which or what? I kind of melded those words together. Which do you think is better, to do a draft? Do you think that's more exciting, or do you think it's fun for these teams that play in the same division to get to be teammates?
I think there's merit to both, but I think the draft might be the way that they should go in the future.
Why?
I think it's fun to, even though it's fun to have some of the New York players play with Philly, for example. I love seeing teammates play against each other. And especially in a draft, it kind of makes it fun how the teams are selected. Sometimes there's a little bit of gamesmanship with, if you're going to take this player, I'm going to take that player, and kind of building matchups and stuff like that. So it also gives the viewer something to view, see. So yeah, I think the draft's the way to go for future.
What was it like for you taking the field with all those players? Obviously, they're all talented. They're big household names. how do you feel like you fit in? Was it challenging to play with different people that have different kind of strategies that they're normally working with? Kind of like, what was the vibe on the field?
It was very welcoming and open space. I was talking to one of the other players from LA who was there, and we both felt very excited for the opportunity, but maybe felt like kind of small fish in a big pond with all the big names, big players there. But when I got there, it didn't really feel like that. I was able to just kind of be one of the athletes, kind of feel like I earned the spot after a good season. Shout out to my teammates. It was just a really positive, supportive atmosphere, and everyone had a great time. We had a youth clinic the day earlier in the day with over 120 athletes, I think, were signed up, and it was an amazing opportunity to interact with other athletes from across the league in an environment where you're kind of inspiring the next generation. And with my current job, it fit right in very well. So that felt great.
Now, were there specific people that you were excited to play with, or who was your favorite to play with? Who do you feel like you had natural chemistry with? Sure.
Yeah. I mean, I think going into the game, I got to play with Phil Turner this year on GOAT at Worlds. And we used to play against each other in university. So it was kind of a cool opportunity to see kind of where we came from and where we are now. I also roomed with him for the weekend, so we spent a lot of time together, and that was something I was really looking forward to. Also the Montreal boys, great opportunity to kind of see them a little bit outside of just our normal games and spend time with them. Aside of that, teammates I was kind of really looking forward to the opportunity of playing with were Sean Mott from Philadelphia. Very tough to play against, very shifty handler, kind of go anywhere. And then Ross Barker from the Chicago Union, also just a great athlete. Kind of a 1-2 punch in Chicago with him and Pablo Giannis. And I think it was just great to be able to play with him. And he's such a character, such a fun guy. So, and with an all-star game like that, it was a really fun opportunity.
And what was the final score?
So the final score is funny because 42-24. So if you know anything,
God.
Yeah, about the AUDL, it's a very high scoring game, and they had a couple rule changes. They threw in like a 2-point line and backcourt violations, and it kind of increased the scoring. So yeah, it might seem like a high number, but yeah, all-star games are usually like that. But
all offense, no defense.
All offense, yeah, different defensive strategies for sure.
Yeah. Well, would you do it again?
Absolutely. If I ever got the chance again, I'd love to go. It was such a fun weekend. Great to see people, athletes from across the league, owners, people involved in the AUDL, and like I said, the youth programming opportunity was such a fun time.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for this kind of impromptu, last minute hangout interview in my apartment, Jeremy. It was kind of really serendipitous timing, so really appreciate it. Jared's going to come with me to the outro, so he's not going to leave just yet. So we're going to take a quick break, and we'll see you on the other side.
This is Shanique Crawford, founder and CEO of Discover Diversity, and you're listening to the Huckin A podcast, your coast-to-coast guide for all things Canadian Ultimate.
So that's our show, folks. Thank you for sticking with us through the news section and the double main event. So, Jeremy, you love Huckin A's social media, don't you?
Huckin A's social media is great. They cover Ultimate across Canada, all different levels. So if you're interested in following them, check them out on Instagram at Huckin A Podcast.
Yeah, so we're there. We'll see you there, and we'll see you next time when we have the winners of the Huckin Heart Award on the podcast. So thank you for tuning in. If you are a subscriber, Jeremy and I will see you over there. He's going to share some sweet stories from his ultimate career. So see you in the subscriber only section. If you don't subscribe, what are you doing with your life? See you next week.